fact that I won the lottery a secret from my husband. Yes, I won $847,000 on a scratch-off ticket I bought at a gas station on my way home from work just a random Tuesday. I was sitting in my car in the driveway scratching off the ticket before heading inside, and suddenly all the numbers matched. I had to check it like 6 times because honestly, I felt like my eyes were deceiving me, and my hands were shaking when I finally walked in. Mark, my husband, was cooking dinner and asked me how my day went. I just told him it was fine and went straight to the bedroom. I heard him calling me, but I locked the door and rushed to call the lottery office. They told me to sign the ticket immediately and that I had 180 days to claim the prize. The reason I hid it is simple. Mark and I had been together for 8 years, and money had always been our Achilles heel. He would buy things that made no sense, like a set of golf clubs for $3,000 when we were already behind on the mortgage, or he would lend money to his brother who never paid us back. We fought about it all the time, so I decided not to tell him. It sounds bad, but that's how it was. That Friday, I called in sick to work and went alone to the lottery office. After taxes, I was left with about $520,000. They asked if I wanted to be in a photo for publicity, and obviously, I said no way. I opened an account at a bank on the other side of town, one Mark doesn't even know exists, and deposited everything there. At first, I went on with my life as if nothing had happened. Work, house, dinner, TV. Mark didn't suspect a thing, but then the idea of everything I could do with that money started to creep in, and things got complicated. The roof of the house had been leaking for 2 years, and Mark always said we'd fix it next month, but that month never came. So, I called the roofers and paid them $8,500 in cash to fix it while Mark was at work. When he got home and saw the brand new roof, he freaked out. "Where did you get $8,000? He asked me like 1,000 times. I blurted out that my mom had given us the money as an early Christmas gift. At that moment, he called my mom to thank her, and I had to quickly send her a text telling her to play along. She covered for me, although later she called and asked, "What are you up to?" Then my car completely died. It wouldn't even start. The mechanic said the transmission was shot, and it would cost more to fix than to buy another one. Mark started looking for a cheap clunker for $6,000 that was sure to break down fast. I went out and bought a 3-year-old used SUV for $28,000 in cash. I brought it home and parked it in the driveway. Mark came out, saw the SUV, and stood there in shock. "Whose car is that?" "It's ours," I replied. "Where did you get $28,000? I made up a story that I had been saving my paychecks in a secret account because I wanted to surprise him. He bought it, but honestly, I could tell it bothered him that I hid something like that, and I definitely noticed the irony. Everything started spinning out of control. I paid off all the credit cards, which was $14,000. I told him it was a work bonus. I bought new appliances when the old ones quit working and assured him they were on sale. I booked a vacation to Mexico and told him I won it in a raffle. My mom stopped covering for me after the roof incident. She told me to stop the lies or tell Mark everything because this was getting out of hand. But I couldn't. We had been suffering over money for years, and now that I could fix things, I wasn't going to let the opportunity pass. Last week, Mark came home early, and I was on the phone with a contractor asking for quotes for the bathroom. I hung up in a panic, but he managed to hear. "Who was that?" he asked. "No one. Spam call." "That didn't sound like spam. It sounded like you were talking about the bathroom." He grabbed my phone from the counter, and I had forgotten to lock it. The banking app was still open, not our joint account, but the other one, where there was still $387,000. Mark stared at the screen and went pale. He turned to look at me and said, "I gave your mom $50,000 last month." I felt my stomach drop to my feet. He continued, shaking. "She called me crying, saying she was going to lose her house. She begged me not to tell you because you would get angry. So I went and borrowed money from my brother. The kind of loan where if you don't pay, they hurt someone. I've been wanting to tell you for days that we now owe $75,000 with interest. And you had all this sitting here?" Just at that moment, his brother's truck pulled into the driveway, and the headlights illuminated the entire living room. Mark was still holding my phone. The banking app was glowing like a bomb about to go off. No one moved. In moments like that, time stretches. Everything feels slow and clear. I could hear the drip of the kitchen faucet. The same leak as always and Mark's agitated breathing. My own heart was pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. The headlights were still there, pointing straight at the house as if blaming us for everything. I thought about the scratch-off, the bank, the roof, the car, the vacation, everything I hid. Every decision I made was to protect myself, to protect my money and my right to decide without Mark interfering. And look at us now, completely exposed. We heard the truck door slam, then another. 2 people. "Mark," I said, barely finding my voice. "What kind of loan are you talking about?" He didn't say anything. He just put my phone on the counter gently, as if he were afraid it would explode, and went to open the door. I followed him, my legs feeling like jelly. Through the frosted glass I could see 2 shadows, one big, the other even bigger. Mark opened it even before they knocked. Brad, his brother, was standing there. Next to him was a guy I didn't know. Shaved head, thick neck, polo shirt tight on his arms, the kind of arms that could easily snap a broomstick. "Good evening, Mark," said Brad with a smile that wasn't friendly at all. It was the smile of a cat before pouncing on its prey. I thought it was a good idea to stop by with Rocco to chat about our deal. I had seen Brad maybe 12 times in all these years. Family gatherings, Christmas parties, the classic barbecue. He always looked like anyone else. Maybe a little smarter, sure. Too sure of himself. But he never gave the impression of being dangerous. According to him, he had a consulting firm or something like that. But Mark never went into details when I asked. Now I understood why he was so reserved. Now I saw a lot of things clearly. Mark stepped aside and let them in. I wanted to scream at him. To ask why he was letting these people into our house on a Tuesday at 7:30 at night. But my throat closed up. After all, it was his brother. His family. And I was the one with my own secrets. With what face could I reproach him for anything? Brad simply walked past me without even saying hello. Rocco, the big guy, barely nodded at me. He started scanning the living room as if checking inventory. And he stopped at the 65-inch TV I had just bought last month. The same one I told Mark was a late Black Friday deal that had just arrived. Nice place, Rocco blurted out, with an unexpectedly soft voice. Should we talk in the kitchen? Mark asked, trying to appear calm, but sweat was already beading on his temples. Sure. Brad went straight to the kitchen as if he were in his own home. Sarah can join us, he said. This concerns her too, doesn't it? I looked for Mark's eyes, but he wouldn't meet my gaze. We all ended up standing around the island. The same one where I made breakfast that morning. Where I made the kids' lunches when they still needed them. Where Mark and I talked about our lives for 8 years of marriage. Brad leaned against the counter and got straight to the point. Here's the thing, Mark. 6 weeks ago you came looking for me because you urgently needed $50,000. You said your mother-in-law was about to lose her house. Very sentimental, very urgent, a family emergency. I felt a chill in my stomach. 6 weeks. Exactly 2 weeks after I won the lottery. 2 weeks after this whole mess started. I'm a family man, Brad continued. I helped my brother, I lent him the money with fair interest, 20% compounded monthly. Very reasonable considering the risk, 20% monthly. And I only took one finance class in college, but even I knew that was loan shark interest. The agreement was full payment in 90 days, said Brad. It's been 42 days and you haven't paid a dime, Mark. Not even interest. I know, Mark replied, his voice cracking. I'm working on it. I just need more time. Time, repeated Brad, laughing humorlessly. Time is money, brother. Every day you don't pay, the bill grows. Right now you owe $68,000. By next week, 72. I did the math in my head. That way we were easily going to reach over 100,000 inches the 90 days. For 50,000 borrowed. You can't do that, I said suddenly. I didn't think before speaking. It's not legal, that's usury. You can't charge like that. Brad looked at me as if I were a child saying something cute at the adults' table. He smirked. Did you see a contract? Did you sign anything? Was this with a bank? I looked at Mark, and his face told me everything. It was a loan between brothers, Brad answered. Verbal, off the books, no papers, no nothing, no laws, just trust. He smiled wider. And you know what happens when trust is broken? Rocco shifted just slightly, just enough to remind us he was there. I have money. It came out without thinking. I can pay tonight, right now. Mark turned to look at me quickly. Brad raised an eyebrow. Really? He took a chair and sat down, crossing his leg, as if he were settling in for a nice chat. Tell me more. Sarah, Mark asked. What are you doing? I'm fixing this, I said, and I grabbed my phone from the counter where Mark had left it. The banking app was still open. I have $387,000 in this account. I'll transfer the $68,000 right now and we're done. Brad narrowed his eyes, first at Mark and then at me. How curious, because Mark told me things were tight, that you were barely paying the mortgage, that's why he needed the loan. I didn't know about the money, said Mark. His voice sounded cardboard stiff. I just found out, right before you arrived. Brad whistled softly. That's cold, having hidden accounts, Sarah. Real cold. He got up from the chair. But it does change the landscape. I'll pay you. I repeated. 68,000 and it's over. You see? Here's the thing. Brad walked toward me, not fast or threateningly. He just advanced. I'm a businessman. And as such, I see an opportunity here. What opportunity? I asked him. You have $387,000 that your husband didn't even suspect, which means nobody knew. There are no records, no trail, nothing. And I see that you want to get rid of the problem quickly. He stopped less than 3 feet from me. He was wearing expensive cologne that smelled strong. What if I say the debt is now $200,000? Brad dropped. Interest? Penalties? Fees? That's perfectly normal in my world. You're crazy, I replied. You can't. I can do whatever I want, Sarah. That's what happens when there's no contract, no rules, no law. He turned to look at Rocco. No one here who doesn't work for me. Mark took a step and pleaded. Come on, Brad, please. She said she was going to pay you. Leave it at 68 and be done. Brad just raised his hand without even turning around. I'm talking to your wife, Mark. The wife who hid almost $500,000 from you and let you borrow money with 24 points of interest when she could have helped from the start. He stared at me. How does that feel, Mark? Knowing that she watched you suffer for weeks, losing sleep, coming to me almost begging, when she had everything to fix the issue in a secret account. I couldn't look anyone in the face. I think 200,000 is fair, said Brad. For the inconvenience. For the worry. For the drama that's coming. And he smiled. Or do you want to negotiate? Pay it, murmured Mark. I saw him looking at the floor. Mark, pay him what he asks. Sarah, I don't care anymore. His voice was different. I had never heard it like that. It wasn't anger or sadness. It was as if he had been hollowed out from the inside, and only the empty shell remained there in the kitchen. You're smart, said Brad. Rocco, give the lady your banking details. Rocco took out his phone and handed it to me. On the screen was a message with an account and routing number. It was surely an offshore account, the kind that can't be traced. I opened my banking app, but my hands were shaking so much I could barely type. $200,000. Almost half of what I had won. Gone in a single transfer. Just because I didn't have the courage before. Out of fear. Out of selfishness. For not telling my husband the truth. I pressed confirm. Brad's phone vibrated in his pocket. He checked it. And seeing the notification, he smiled. A pleasure doing business with you, Sarah. He walked toward the door, followed by Rocco. Mark, let's see when we can set up a family dinner. I'll ask my wife to call yours. They left, and the door closed behind them. Mark and I stood in the kitchen. In an abysmal silence. The refrigerator hummed. A car passed outside. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked. Mark, I said finally, I can explain. He laughed. But it was a bitter laugh. More like a noise stuck in his chest. Explain what? That you won the lottery and never told me anything. That you watched me go crazy trying to help your mom, and you didn't say half a word. That you let me go ask my own brother for money. His voice broke. My own brother. Sarah, you knew perfectly well who he was. You've always known. I didn't even have a clue that you were doing all this. You never mentioned anything about the loan. I didn't tell you anything because I didn't want to worry you. I didn't tell you because I thought we were in this together. Both of us fighting to get ahead. He hit the counter so hard the fruit bowl moved. But it wasn't like that, was it? You were just watching me, waiting to see how I solved it alone. That's not fair. Fair? He laughed again, sarcastic. Now you want to talk about fairness? What's fair about keeping $500,000 without saying anything to your husband for 6 months? What's fair about lying to my face every day? The roof, the car, the vacation? I swore we finally had some luck. That things were finally going our way. And all the while you were just playing house. Playing poor. Mocking me. I had never seen Mark look at me like that. In 8 years. With all the fights we've had. About money. About his family. About everything. I had never felt like a stranger by his side. His enemy. I was afraid. I said. And even to me, the excuse sounded pathetic. I know how you are with money. I was afraid you would spend it all on things that don't matter. Golf clubs, your brother's businesses, friends who never pay you back. And so what did you do? You spent it on the house, on our car, on vacations. And how is that different? Because it was for the good of both of us? Because they were smart decisions? Because I was improving both our lives. But without me, his voice was barely audible, without taking me into account. You decided alone how to spend $300,000 and not once did you ask my opinion. He walked to the fridge, grabbed a beer, opened it and threw the cap in the sink. My mom really needed the money, right? I asked him. I couldn't stop thinking about that since he said it. Mark took a long swig before answering. Yes. Yes, she needed it. Your mom was going to lose her house. That part was true. Then why didn't she ask me? Because she knows you, Sarah. She knows you were going to ask questions. That you were going to ask for papers? That you were surely going to go to the bank yourself? That you were going to make a scene? He laughed, but with anger. She thought it was easier with me. That I was just going to help, not start investigating. Typical of Linda. It hit me. My own mother had preferred to ask my husband for help rather than talk to me. She manipulated him until she got him to ask for a dangerous loan. Then she sat back watching him suffer. While I had enough money to fix everything. Pure lies in this family. Everyone, without exception. I still have $187,000, I murmured. After tonight it's still more money than we've ever had. And that's supposed to make me happy. I'm just saying we can use it, Mark. For the mortgage. For the kids' savings. To really think about the future. Mark finished the beer and left the bottle on the counter. You know what's ironic? I understand why you didn't tell me anything. I've screwed up many times with money. The golf clubs, the loans to friends. I earned all that. I earned your lack of trust. Mark, even so, you should have told me. He finally met my gaze. His eyes were red. You should have trusted me and let me prove to you that I could change. But instead you decided on your own that I couldn't. And now here we are. $200,000 poorer. My brother knows exactly how much you have. And our marriage. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. And now what are we going to do? I asked. I don't know. I really don't know. He grabbed his keys. They were hanging by the door. I'm going to stay with a friend tonight. I need to think. Please don't go, Sarah. He stopped at the door but didn't turn around. I haven't slept well in 6 weeks. Lying next to you. Thinking how to tell you that I got you into a $75,000 debt. 6 weeks of nightmares. Imagining Rocco showing up when you're alone in the house. 6 weeks trying to find a way out of this so we wouldn't lose everything. He finally turned around. The porch light illuminated his face, and I noticed wrinkles I had never seen before. When did we age so much? All that time, he said. All that time you had the solution in your purse. Just a call, a check, and you preferred to let me drown alone. He left and closed the door. I stayed alone in the kitchen. The same one where we celebrated promotions, birthdays and anniversaries. Where our children learned to walk. Dropped their first glass. Hid their first report card. I stared at my phone. The banking app was still open. $187,243.67. Less than 3 months ago, I had nothing. And now I had almost $200,000. And a husband who might never trust me again. I called my mom. She answered on the 4th ring. Sarah, it's almost 9. Is everything okay? You called Mark. You asked him for $50,000 and told him not to tell me. There was silence. Then a sigh. He told you. He had no choice. His brother just came to the house with a debt collector, and they took $200,000 from us. What? Her voice rose in alarm. Sarah, what are you talking about? What debt collector? I told her everything. The lottery, the secret account. That I lied to Mark all these months, the loan to help her, Brad's visit, the payment. When I finished, my mom was crying. I had no idea. She said, I didn't know Mark was going to seek out Brad. I thought he was going to ask for a loan at the bank, or that he was going to use a credit card. I don't know, Sarah. You have to believe me. Why didn't you ask me for help? Because I knew you were going to ask things. That you were going to want to know how you got into trouble. And one thing was going to lead to another. And you were going to end up finding out about the gambling. The phone slipped from my hand, from the sheer impact. Gambling? What gambling are you talking about? It started after your dad passed away. I just played online poker. Just small amounts. I thought maybe it would help me supplement the insurance check. But then I lost once. And I lost again. And I tried to win back what I lost. And now I heard her crying. That deep weeping you can feel, even if you're just holding the phone. I lost everything, Sarah. The savings, the emergency fund, the money your dad left. I asked for a reverse mortgage to keep betting. Because I really thought I could win back what I lost. And then the bank notified me that they were going to foreclose on the house, and I panicked. That's when I called Mark, because I knew he would help without asking questions. My mom had a gambling addiction. She had lost absolutely everything. She even convinced my husband to ask a loan shark for money out of shame of telling me the truth. The lie was an endless tangle. More and more nodded. Mom, I asked her as softly as I could. How much do you owe in total? I have no exact idea. Maybe 100,000. The house is worth like 250,000. But almost all of it belongs to the bank now. And besides that, I have several credit cards, because when the poker site stopped accepting my debit card, I started using credit. $100,000. On top of the 200,000 I had already given Brad. On top of everything else. I have $187,000 left. I told her, I can get you out of this. Pay your debts, save the house, get you into a program. No. Suddenly my mom's voice sounded firm. Absolutely not. That money is yours, Sarah. For you, for your kids. I'm not going to accept it. You already accepted 50,000. Mark got them for you. Look how it all ended. In the disaster I caused. No. I'll figure it out. Declare bankruptcy. Move to an apartment. Whatever. But I'm not going to let you ruin your marriage. Just to fix my mess. We talked for almost another hour. She told me how everything started getting out of hand. At first, it was $20 a hand. Then she was betting 500. Then up to 2,000. And she would play until dawn because she was sure the next hand was going to fix everything. Exactly the logic I used with the lottery money. One more purchase. One more improvement. One more lie just to keep the peace. Maybe not being able to tell the truth ran in the family. When I hung up it was almost 11. And from Mark, no message or call. I didn't know if that was better or worse than us screaming at each other. I started cleaning the kitchen even though it didn't need it. I put the dishes in the dishwasher, cleaned the surfaces again, just to have something to do with my hands while my head was spinning. At midnight I went to lie down in the bedroom, which was empty. The sheets still smelled like Mark's cologne. I lay there staring at the ceiling. Doing math in the dark. 520,000 from the lottery. Minus 8,000. 500 the roof cost. Minus 28,000 for the car. Minus 14,000 for the cards. Minus the vacation. Minus the appliances. Minus all the little expenses. Which, according to me, were necessary. That were going to improve life. Or that Mark would have spent anyway. 387,000 before tonight. Minus 200,000 for Brad. 187,000. $243.67. In just 6 months I had spent more than $330,000 and almost all of it behind my husband's back. Almost all of it based on lies. I wasn't better than my mom. We both gambled. She did it with chips. I did it with my marriage. And we both ended up losing. My phone vibrated on the nightstand. It was a message from Mark. I'm staying at Mike's tonight. We have to talk tomorrow. I still don't know what I'm going to do, I replied. I love you. I'm sorry. I'll wait for you here when you're ready. There was no more response. That night I dreamed of Brad, of Rocco's low voice and his eyes that saw everything, of my mom crying in front of poker chips, of Mark walking out the door and never coming back. When dawn broke, the sun was streaming through the window, and the phone showed 6 missed calls, all from my mom's neighbor, and a voicemail that started with, Sarah, I'm so sorry to tell you this, but last night they took your mom in the ambulance. I didn't even change. I grabbed the sweatpants and t-shirt I left on the chair last night. I put on my sneakers and in less than 3 minutes I was in the car. I barely heard the message. Mom lived 45 minutes away, if traffic allowed. I got there in 32, running 2 red lights and doing 90. The whole way I called the hospital, they put me on hold. I left messages. But no nurse returned the call. The only thing I knew was what Mrs. Patterson told me in the voicemail. Ambulance? Unconscious? They took her to St. Jude's. I called Mark and it went straight to voicemail. Mark, my mom is in the hospital. I don't know what happened. I'm going there. Please, call me. But he never called. I ran in through the ER. A nurse took me to a room with plastic chairs and a muted TV in the corner with the morning news. I sat there for what felt like hours, but only 20 minutes passed before the doctor came out. Mrs. Brennan? That's me. My mom? What happened to her? Doctor. Navarro was short, with tired but kind eyes. She sat next to me with that slow voice doctors use when you know bad news is coming. Your mom had a heart attack last night. She called 911 around 2. And when the paramedics arrived, she was already unconscious. Is she alive? Yes, she is stable. We had to operate urgently and put a stent in an artery. She is in intensive care, heavily sedated, but we have hope she will pull through. I let out a sigh I didn't even know I was holding. Can I see her? In a little while. But first I have to ask you some questions. She took out a small notebook. Your mom's tests showed worrying things. A lot of stress, elevated cortisol, and some alcohol in her blood. Has she been under pressure lately? I almost wanted to laugh. You can bet she has. Another thing, I noticed she hasn't refilled her high blood pressure medication in 3 months. Did she have money problems? The questions continued. About my mom's food, her habits, her support system, her life. Every time I answered, another sign of my mom's neglect came to light. Not because of me, but because of her. She was so deep in the gambling mess, in that shame, and in the desperate attempt to fix everything alone, that she completely stopped taking care of her health. One more thing, Dr. Navarro told me. When she started coming to in the ambulance, she was repeating something over and over. I think it was a man. Mark, does that ring a bell? It was my husband's name. The last thing that came out of my mom's mouth before fainting was my husband's name. Because when she needed help, she called him, not me. Because he was the one who tried to save her. Because in her worst moment, she thought of the person she failed, not the daughter she lied to. I wanted to scream, to cry, to get in the car and drive until I was completely lost, but I just nodded. It's my husband. She was worried about a debt she had with him. Doctor. Navarro gave me a look that said she already had the whole story, even if I hadn't told her the details. Your mom is gonna need a good while to recover, at least a week here in the hospital. And after that, most likely she'll have to go to rehab. She's going to need help with her meds, diet, stress management. Does she have someone to support her with that? I can, I replied, though saying it, I wasn't even sure if that was true. They let me see her near noon. She was in a private ICU room, surrounded by machines and with tubes connected to her arms. She looked like 20 years had fallen on her since last Christmas. When I entered, she opened her eyes with effort. Sarah, I'm here, Mom. Forgive me. She spoke so softly, she could barely be heard. Forgive me, daughter. I'm so sorry. I took her hand and felt it was barely like paper, so fragile and dry. Rest, Mom, we'll talk about everything later. Did you tell Mark? I called him, he hasn't answered yet. Her eyes filled with tears. I ruined everything. For both of you. I ruined everything. Enough. I squeezed her hand carefully. For now, the only thing you have to do is rest and recover. That is the only important thing. But of course, that wasn't true. Everything else still mattered. The money, the lies, my marriage, the debts. None of that was going to disappear, just because she was in a hospital bed. I stayed with her until she fell asleep. And then I went to the cafeteria to get a coffee, and think about what I was going to do next. My phone vibrated, message from Mark. Is your mom okay? I replied. Heart attack. She's stable. She's in ICU at St. Jude's. There was a silence and then, I'll stop by after work. It wasn't much, but at least he wasn't shutting the door on me completely. I spent the afternoon with practical things, talking to the social worker about my mom's insurance. Luckily she had government coverage and that paid almost everything. I also called the bank to freeze her accounts while I figured out how much she really owed. I notified her neighbor to tell her what had happened, and to please keep an eye on the house. Mrs. Patterson was a blessing. She offered to water the plants, collect the mail, and check the house daily. And also, very kindly, she told me things I didn't suspect. Your mom has been dealing with all this for a while, my dear. I've seen men coming to the door. Not for visits, if you understand me. She paid them in cash. I saw them from my window. I tried asking her if she needed help, but she always said everything was fine. Men at the door, surely collectors, or maybe something more serious. Who knows how long it had been like that? 6 months? More? I didn't want to keep asking. But 6 months. Right since my dad died, right when her whole world went down and she took refuge in gambling to endure. I thanked Mrs. Patterson and hung up. Then I went back to my mom's room. I sat by her bed and stared at her, wondering what else could go wrong. Mark arrived around 6, still in his work clothes, khaki pants and a blue polo shirt with the company logo. He looked exhausted. How is she, Sable? If she keeps doing well, tomorrow they move her to a regular room. He nodded. He kept his hands in his pockets and looked around the room, avoiding my gaze. I'm not here to fight, he said finally. I just wanted to make sure she was okay. I know. He approached to watch my mom sleep. She called me crying, saying she was going to lose the house, that it was a problem with the bank, and she needed cash to fix it. She asked me not to tell you anything because she was very ashamed. She was gambling. Online poker. She ran out of everything and didn't know how to tell me. Mark closed his eyes. I know. I found out last night, after you left. I called her to yell at her for dragging you into all this and she ended up telling me the truth. Does he already know about the heart attack? I mean, does he know stress caused it? The lies? All that? I think so. Mark finally looked at me. His eyes were red. But I didn't know if it was from crying, exhaustion, or the hospital lighting. I want to be mad at you, he said. I am mad at you. But after seeing this, seeing what secrets and lies cause, I don't want us to end up the same. That won't happen to us. You can't promise that. Not after what you did. I know. But I can try to change. We can both try. He didn't say anything else. He just stood there, hands in pockets, looking at my mom's fragile body in that huge hospital bed. I talked to my brother. He blurted out suddenly and I felt my blood freeze. Brad? There's more, but yes, Brad. Mark walked to the window and stared at the parking lot. I told him I already knew about the other 130,000, that he tried to get much more out of you than he should have. And what did he say? He laughed. Said that's business. That I should have read the fine print. Mark clenched his jaw. I warned him that if he showed up at the house again I was going to call the police. And would they do anything? Who knows? Maybe not. But I felt calmer saying it. He turned to look at me, and he dropped something curious on me. He said he already knew about the lottery. I felt my stomach drop to my feet. How? Apparently. When you claim a big prize here, everything is public. Name, amount, date, everything. You just have to know how to look. He's been monitoring winners for years. That's how he finds who to extort. I felt terrible. So he had us in his sights? No. He had you. When your mom asked me for help, everything fell into place. He knew she was going to turn to him because she had no one else. He calculated exactly how much he could get. Mark spoke with such bitter resentment. His own brother had planned everything months in advance, just waiting for the right moment. The room started spinning. All this time, I thought I was the one keeping secrets, the one playing and manipulating others. But Brad was way ahead of all of us. He spent his time monitoring lottery winners, tracking the new rich in the system. And he was just waiting for someone vulnerable to need help to then take advantage. It was brilliant in its cruelty. He located people who overnight had more money than usual, waited for someone close to be in a crisis, offered to help and then sank them in impossible to pay debts. And of course the victims couldn't even complain because doing so exposed themselves and confessed the money they were hiding. How many people has he done this to? I asked. I don't know. Many, Mark answered, going straight to the kitchen table and collapsing into the chair. Exhausted. Once, at a family barbecue, he told me that in 10 years he had made more money than my dad in his entire life. I thought he was bragging, exaggerating. Now I think he actually fell short. Hey, we have to stop him. How? We have no proof. There's nothing in writing. It's his word against ours. And now his word comes backed by the $200,000 he has in his account. I'm going to get that money back, said Mark. What? But how? I still don't know, but I'm not going to let him keep winning. I'm sick of being the little brother they manipulate, extract money from, and then mock. This time I saw a determination in his look that I hadn't noticed in years. He had fire in his eyes. We're going to fix this together. Sarah, the money, your mom, us. Everything. But no more secrets. No more lies from you or me. I stood up and walked toward him. He didn't back away, which I took as a good sign. No more secrets. I told him. I promise. I want you to tell me everything. Down to the last dollar you spent. Every lie. Every decision you made without telling me. I need to know everything to see where we stand. Okay. And then we're going to face my brother. Both of us together. I nodded. Together. He didn't hug me. Didn't even touch my shoulder. But he was there with me. In the same room. Talking about our future as if we still had one. It was progress. We stayed at the hospital until the last minute of visiting hours. Until 9. Mark walked me to the car in the parking lot. And then followed me to the house to make sure I arrived safely. He didn't come in. But when he got to Mike's apartment, he sent me a message. We'll talk more tomorrow. Rest. I couldn't sleep. I spent the night reviewing every expense I made since I won the lottery. Writing down every purchase. Every lie. Every dollar I hid from Mark. The list was longer than I'd like to admit. But it was the first step to fixing everything. Laying the first brick to rebuild trust. The first honest act in 6 months. The following weeks were heavy. My mom got out of the hospital and was sent to a cardiac rehab center, where she was going to spend a month recovering, and while at it, receiving support for her mental health. Turned out the gambling addiction was almost always a result of depression and anxiety. Just what my mom had been hiding for so long. I went to see her daily. Some days I found her lucid, remorseful, wanting to try hard and move forward. Other times she got defensive, angry, blaming everyone but herself. The therapist told me it was normal. That's how this is. Recovery is never a straight line. Meanwhile, Mark and I were going through our own rehab. After a week at Mike's, he came back, but slept in the guest room. We ate together. Talked about the day and went twice a week to couples therapy with Dr. Stevens, who specializes in financial betrayals. Yes. Apparently that exists. In a beautiful office, an old mansion downtown with warm light and super comfortable armchairs. The first time we sat there, we couldn't even look each other in the eye. The doctor left us silent for like 5 minutes before saying something. Why are you here? She asked. Because my wife hid $500,000 from me, Mark blurted out. Because I was afraid to trust my husband with the money. I said. The doctor nodded, as if she had already foreseen it. So, you are both here out of fear. Therapy wasn't easy at all. Much rougher than I imagined. She made us talk about things we had been keeping for years. The real motive behind our fights about money, childhood experiences that shaped how we spend, ideas we invented about each other without ever asking if they were true. I discovered Mark didn't spend poorly out of irresponsibility, but out of wanting to prove to himself he could provide for us. His dad lost his job when he was 12, and they lived on vouchers and aid for 2 years. Mark grew up believing a man's value was in what he gave his family. Loans to friends, golf clubs. That need to help came from that fear. And Mark understood mine wasn't greed or distrust, but an obsession with not losing control. My parents divorced because my dad decided everything with money, and never told my mom anything. When he died, my mom found out they owed $200,000 and spent years paying debts that didn't exist for her. I grew up believing the only way to be safe was handling my own money, even if that meant keeping secrets from those I loved. Little by little, although it was hard work, we started putting ourselves back together. Money was an everyday topic. After the Brad incident and my purchases, we only had about $175,000 left, which is still much more than we ever had, but nothing like what I kept so long. We made a plan, pay off the mortgage, $134,000, save $20,000 just in case, and use the rest to help my mom when she got out of rehab. It was weird making financial decisions together. After 8 years arguing about money, collaborating for real was like learning another language, but Dr. Stevens helped us. Budget meetings once a month, open access to all accounts, and no purchase over $200 without notifying beforehand. It wasn't perfect. We kept fighting. He kept thinking I was controlling. I thought he was too relaxed. But now, at least, we discussed seriously and without hiding anything. The Brad thing, of course, was still pending. Mark investigated, and it turned out Brad had been running his family lending business for almost 10 years, looking for those who could never get credit at the bank, purely people with bad history. Desperate or so ashamed, they preferred asking him rather than admitting everything to their family. He charged them sky-high interest, threatened them to pay, and they had never been able to prove anything, because he did everything under the table. He was smart, very careful, and had connections everywhere. And besides, he had $200,000 of mine. We need a lawyer, Mark said one night. We were on the couch, going over our few options again. A lawyer can't help. There is no paper that proves it. Brad never leaves tracks. But we must be able to do something. What? Go to the police? And tell them my brother-in-law is extorting us, but without proof or anything, they're going to laugh at us. Mark stayed quiet for a good while and then said, what if we get something that proves it? For example, what? What if I talk to him again? I wear a wire, record him saying everything. I looked at him closely. That's crazy. He's going to notice sooner or later. And then what? Rocco appears again, but now not just to scare us? I'm tired of being scared, said Mark, and this time his voice sounded much firmer. I'm tired of letting him do what he wants. He's done this to so many people, Sarah. I feel maybe what he does really destroys lives. And he always comes out unscathed because we all prefer to endure or flee rather than face him. It's not fear. It's common sense. Doesn't matter, he responded. We were like that for hours, each stubborn in their own way. Mark wanted to jump in. I just wanted to leave that behind and move on with our life. Nobody yielded. In the end, Dr. Stevens told us to pause the topic for a week to give us a chance to clear our heads and think it over well before deciding something so big. Important decisions aren't made in the heat of the moment, she advised us. Give yourselves time to see clearly what you want to do. We listened. That week, we didn't even mention Brad's name. We focused on working, helping my mom recover, attending to pending matters, building the routine again until on the 7th day, something happened that changed everything. I was with my mom in therapy when my cell phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but I did. Is this Sarah Brennan? Who's calling? I'm Rachel Vasquez, reporter for the Tribune. I'm working on an investigation about predatory lending here in the city, and your name came up related to Brad Holloway. I understand you are his sister-in-law. I quickly stepped out into the hall with my heart racing. Where did you get my number? From public records. Your name appears linked to his. Rachel spoke seriously, but seemed genuine. I know this is very sudden, but I've been investigating Brad for 6 months. Several sources pointed out to me that he and your husband have been extorted for a considerable sum. I would like to know if you are willing to talk and tell your story. On the record. I leaned against the wall, head spinning. A reporter, investigating Brad, already knowing part of what he did to us. I need to discuss it with my husband first. Can I call you later? Of course. But Sarah? Rachel paused. I have 15 other people ready to give their testimony. Your case would help a lot to make him pay for what he did. Everything that happened to you guys, he has done to many more. They also deserve justice. I wrote down her number and hung up. The first thing I did was call Mark. You have no idea what just happened. I blurted out. Mark and I met with Rachel Vasquez at a downtown coffee shop a few days later. She was a young woman, very smart and with a practical air, just like movie journalists when they investigate something big. She had a ton of papers, court records, bank records, and testimonies from other victims. In 6 months she had built a case against Brad that made ours look like a simple school scolding. He's been doing this for over 12 years. She explained as she put documents on the table. He started with acquaintances, lending with sky-high interest, then he leveled up. He looks for vulnerable people. Widows, divorcees. People just coming out of a medical emergency. Desperate and ashamed people, who aren't going to ask for help or say anything. I started looking at the names. Elena Gutierrez owed $45,000, ended up paying $120,000 inches 3 years. Marcus Webb asked for $20,000, and ended up homeless because he couldn't keep up with Brad. Donna Patterson. Patterson has a son named Rocco, I asked, seeing her. Rachel nodded. Donna is Rocco's mom. Brad left her bankrupt 8 years ago. And then, when no one wanted to give her work, he got her son a job. That's how he wins over his own. First he sinks you, then he throws you a life preserver. But if you work for him... I remembered Rocco's voice. So calm. He wasn't just muscle, he was another victim. Just like us. Why haven't you published anything? Mark asked. With all this, why is Brad still so carefree? Because I need proof that really counts for something legal? Testimonies help. But in the end, without something solid, it's my word against his. Brad never leaves a trace. Nothing recorded. Nothing signed, nothing on paper. I need someone to get me something strong. She looked at Mark and blurted out. Are you up for wearing a wire? Mark answered. You want me to talk to my brother and try to get something out of him while recording? Exactly. Let him feel confident, relaxed. Let him believe he's among family. If he explains what he does himself, with that I can sink him, said Rachel. That's extremely dangerous. I told her. If Brad finds out I don't know what he could do, it won't happen, she answered, and she showed us a pen that also recorded. No wires or anything weird. It recorded perfectly up to 10 meters. It wouldn't raise suspicions. And if he notices, asked Mark. If something goes wrong, you withdraw and that's it. Don't force it. It's just a normal chat and you leave. But from what I know, Brad is boastful. He loves to brag. If you give him a little rope, he'll hang himself. Mark and I exchanged glances. That was exactly what he wanted. Finally respond. Make Brad pay. Not just stay with arms crossed. But it was exactly what I feared most. Can we think about it for a couple of days? I asked. Sure, said Rachel while putting away the papers. Just letting you know. Whatever you decide to do. This story is coming out. I already have enough testimonies, but your husband, being the brother, would be the key piece. That would make this issue not just stay here. It could become a serious complaint. She left us her card and a folder of documents for us to see. Mark and I stayed in that coffee shop for a good while, without talking much, just processing everything. I want to do it, he said finally. I know, but no, if you're not in agreement. This is on both of us. We talk about it before deciding anything big, I replied. And I stared at him. This was the man who asked a notorious loan shark for money to get my mom out of trouble. The same one who lived 6 weeks scared to death. Feeling guilty and alone. Just because I was too selfish to tell him the truth. The one who stayed by my side. Who kept trying. Who fought for our future. Despite everything I had done. I'm not against it, I replied slowly. I'm just scared. It's different. I know, but being scared is no reason not to do the right thing. Mark took my hand. It was the first time he touched me again since he found out about the money. His palm, warm and familiar, smelled like home. Together, he said. Together. The plan took shape over the next 2 weeks. Rachel trained Mark on what to say to Brad, how to make small talk, and what topics could make him open up. We practiced at home. I pretended to be Brad and Mark said his lines. You're too stiff? I warned him after one of the rehearsals. It sounds like you're memorizing them. Because I am memorizing them. You can't go to Brad like that. He's going to notice something is up. You have to be natural, relaxed. Like you're just having a beer with your brother. How do you want me to relax if my brother is an unscrupulous loan shark? Pretend. If you could act normal for 6 weeks while debts were drowning you, you can fake relaxation for half a chat. The opportunity came sooner than expected. Brad's 40th birthday was coming up and his mom wanted to throw a family party at her house. Mandatory for all Holloways. That's perfect, said Rachel as soon as Mark told her. Family atmosphere, there's alcohol. Everyone will relax. Surely you catch him in a good mood and he's more open. And if he doesn't spill anything? Then we try later. We're not going to bet everything on one, but this is the best chance to nail him. Saturday was the party. I wasn't invited. I never got along with Brad's wife, and after the extortion, my presence would raise suspicions. So Mark went alone, with the recording pen turned on in his shirt. Rachel parked 2 streets away, monitoring the audio from a surveillance van. I stayed home, trying not to go crazy, checking my phone every moment. Nothing from Mark, nothing from Rachel, just silence and the clock moving slowly. After 3 hours, the phone rang. We did it, screamed Rachel excitedly. We have everything. Turned out Brad was indeed the braggart Rachel suspected. After a beer, surrounded by family, thinking no one would ever do anything to him there, he started telling his business in detail. He named several victims. Rachel told me while we listened to the audio on her laptop. He explained how he set his rates, how he collected, and even how he chose who to approach. He even boasted about the $200,000 he got from Greg's naive wife. Exact words. Furthermore, he narrated at least 3 other loans he was still collecting. I heard my brother-in-law's voice, so sure and calm, telling how he extorted dozens of people for over 10 years. How he ruined lives without losing sleep, and how he saw taking advantage of others' fear just as good business. My hands froze, not from fear, but from anger. And now what? I asked. Now I write my story and it comes out Sunday. Then I hand everything over to the prosecutor's office. Are they going to put him in jail? It's hard. Usury here is just an administrative offense, but some of his ways can be extortion, which is already a serious crime. At least he's going to have civil lawsuits from all the victims who dare to report. And if it goes badly for him, criminal charges that could send him to jail for several years. Mark said nothing the whole conversation. When Rachel left, I found him on the terrace, looking at the garden. How do you feel? I asked. Like I betrayed my brother. He betrayed you first. I know, and that's why it feels worse. He sighed. But he's still my brother, Sarah. We grew up together, played in this same yard when we were kids, and now I'm going to be the culprit of his life collapsing. I sat next to him. His life is collapsing because of what he did, not because of you. You're just going to make sure he has consequences. Is that how you felt? When you hid the money from me, did you also feel you were protecting me? He froze me with his question. Is it not the same? No? You kept secrets because you thought it was for the best. I'm going to bring out the truth because I think the same. In the end, we both made decisions for others without consulting them. Brad extorted us, I told him. He hurt dozens. This isn't about wanting to believe you're smarter. It's about stopping someone who really is dangerous. I know, murmured Mark, rubbing his face. I just can't stop thinking about what my mom is going to say. At Thanksgiving dinner. At the holidays. At all those family things that will never be the same again. Were they ever? He didn't answer. But we knew. The Halloweens had already been broken long before. Brad took care of that. The story was published the following Sunday, right on the front page of the Metro section. Abusive lender exposed. Local businessman accused of extorting hundreds of thousands of dollars from vulnerable people. Rachel put together a perfect piece. Impossible to ignore. She mentioned Brad and his victims. She cited long fragments of what Mark recorded. Of course, with his permission. By noon, the news was already on 3 local newscasts. And by the afternoon it became a trend. The next day, the prosecutor's office announced a formal investigation. Brad called Mark only once. The same day the scandal exploded. You caused this, he blurted out, with a cold voice, controlled. My own brother. You earned it, Mark answered him. Every victim you screwed. Every life you ruined. That was only your fault. You have no idea what you just started. You have no idea. That was a threat. Take it as a fact. Brad responded lower. Do you really think a newspaper article is going to stop me? Do you think I don't have alternatives? You and your wife just made the worst mistake of your lives. He hung up. We notified Rachel immediately, but she wasn't worried. He's in a panic. That's how people get when they have no escape. The last thing Brad would do now is look for you guys. He'd only sink further. He's going to look for a lawyer. He's going to deny everything and he's going to endure. And she was right. In the following weeks, Brad did just that. He hired a super expensive lawyer to say everything was sensationalism and lies. He denied everything. He insisted the recording was manipulated and taken out of context, but nobody cared. After the publication, more victims started coming out, and then even more. The prosecutor's office built a case so solid it was impossible to rebut. 3 months after the report, they arrested Brad Holloway and charged him with 12 counts of usury, 4 of extortion and 2 of criminal intimidation, with a $500,000 bail he couldn't pay. His wife asked for a divorce while he was still in jail waiting for trial, and Mark's mom refused to speak to him for half a year. His other brothers were divided. Some thought Mark had done the right thing. Others felt he had betrayed the family. But Brad's victims, they sent cards, flowers. They even went to our house to thank us. Elena Gutierrez, the lady who ended up paying $120,000 for a $45,000 loan, hugged Mark in the kitchen and burst into tears. You gave me my life back, she told him. I thought I was going to be paying him for the rest of my life. Then came the civil lawsuits, 17 victims, all represented by the same firm. They sued Brad for damages exceeding $2 million. Since his assets were frozen due to the criminal matter, collecting anything was going to be a matter of luck and patience. But at least it was something. It represented justice. Among those victims turned out to be my mom. Brad didn't just send Mark to collect from her, but he had been analyzing her for months. He had people at the bank where she had her accounts. And they had already informed him about her gambling losses, her growing desperation, and the reverse mortgage. Brad had decided she was a perfect target, long before she contacted Mark herself. The $50,000 of the loan weren't going to get her out of trouble. They were only going to put her in a debt Brad could squeeze at will. If she failed a payment, he would have kept her house, the same one she almost lost to gambling. He would have snatched everything, and on top called it interest. When my mom found out everything, when she understood how far Brad's manipulation went, her defensiveness and denial went away. She had spent years believing everything was her addiction's fault. But for the first time she understood she was chosen as prey, exploited and pushed to disaster. I thought I was weak, she confessed one day, sitting in her apartment near the rehab center. I thought the fault was completely mine, but now I know there was always someone pulling the strings, making everything worse. That didn't justify gambling. It doesn't justify it, but it does explain why every time I felt I was improving, something came down. Every time I tried to get out of the hole, something ended up pushing me back. She shook her head. I'm not saying everything was his fault. I made my decisions, bad decisions, but he made sure they crushed me. From there, she started taking her recovery seriously. She started going to Gamblers Anonymous meetings. She let me help organize her budget, manage her money better. One day, sitting in her apartment, she confessed, I was about to lose everything out of pure pride and not asking for help. I don't want to go on like this, and neither do I. The trial lasted 4 weeks. Mark testified on day 12 and I watched him from the gallery, while he answered questions about his brother's business, his childhood and the famous loan that got him into all this. That court had nothing to do with TV lawyer series. It was a lot of boring reporting. Papers, objections, things I didn't even understand. But the day Mark took the stand, the weight of the moment was felt. Even the air got thick. The prosecutor, a lawyer named Victoria Chen, took him step by step. How did he ask Brad for money? On what terms? How did the interest get out of control? Did you know what kind of person your brother was when you asked for the money? Asked the prosecutor. Did you know he wasn't someone conventional? Answered Mark. His voice was firm, although his hands were shaking. Did you know the interest was high? But I didn't understand the full gravity until he came to my house, demanding much more than we owed. And why did you agree to help in the investigation? Mark stayed silent for a few seconds. He looked around the room, beyond the judge, the jury, everyone, until he found Brad, sitting at the defense table, his brother, the same one who failed him. Because he's my brother? He answered at last. And because I couldn't keep watching how he hurt so many people? The defense lawyer did his best to make him look bad, saying everything was out of envy, revenge, or family feuds. But Mark never lost his cool, answered Shirley, without getting defensive or angry. I have never felt so proud of him. The jury deliberated for 6 hours, and returned with guilty verdicts on all charges. Brad received an 8-year sentence in state prison and will be eligible for parole in 4. That day, driving back home, we drove in silence. Both of us as if finally realizing everything was over, and honestly, neither knew quite what to feel. Are you okay? I dared to ask. I don't know. And you? Neither. He reached out his hand and took mine. We continued like that all the way back, together, afraid, but accompanied. That night we ordered pizza, watched bad movies, and didn't mention Brad, or the trial, or any of that. We were just there, sharing space like two people who survived something horrible. It was almost midnight when Mark turned and said, I forgive you. I was shocked. What? The money, the lottery, the lies. I've been wanting to forgive you for months and months, but I couldn't. Something got stuck. But seeing my brother today, seeing the consequences of everything he did, I realized yours was out of fear. His out of greed, it's not the same. Still, I should have told you. Yes, but I understand why it was, he squeezed my hand. And I'm ready to move on, but really not just pretend everything is fine. I want us to build something new together. Tears came out. I would love that, but on one condition. Which? He smiled. We're going to consult a financial advisor, someone outside the family, to help us when we don't agree on money. I laughed. I really laughed for the first time in months. Done. We didn't solve everything by magic that night. Recovering isn't linear. Dr. Stevens repeated it 1,000 times. But something did change. The weight we were carrying, and that almost ended our marriage, finally started to lift. 6 months later we were much better than in years. The $175,000 we had left after paying the mortgage and helping my mom continued growing in a low-risk investment account, recommended by our new financial advisor Harold, a quite boring accountant but super reliable. My mom went back to living alone, in a smaller apartment closer to us. She went twice a week to Gamblers Anonymous meetings, and, since the heart attack, hadn't bet again. Every Sunday we had dinner together. Mark and I renewed our vows, without making a fuss. No big ceremonies or family dramas, just us, our best friends as witnesses, and a simple exchange of promises in the garden of the house, which finally, was ours. I promise to tell you the truth, I told him, even if it hurts, especially when it hurts most. And I promise to listen to you, he said, even if sometimes I don't want to hear it. We weren't perfect, we still argued. He kept saying I was too apprehensive with money and I thought he was too laid back to save. But we learned something. Marriage isn't a matter of perfection, but of sincerity, of facing problems head on, instead of running away. The lottery money that was about to end us, in the end saved us. Not for the cash, which by then was almost gone, but because it forced us to face all the lies we had told each other, between us and to ourselves. It disarmed us to be able to rebuild ourselves stronger. Last week I went back to the gas station where I had bought the winning ticket. Almost 2 years ago. Same place, same register, the same board cashier as always. On pure impulse I bought another ticket, scratched it right there in the car, just like before, and I won $8. It made me laugh. I drove back and told Mark. He laughed too. Should we buy more? He asked jokingly. Should we keep betting on the jackpot? I think that excitement was enough for a lifetime. I told him, yes, he hugged me. I think you're right. We spent the $8 on ice cream, 2 cones, 1 chocolate and 1 vanilla. and we ate them sitting on a park bench near the house, watching the sun go down. But of course life doesn't fix itself so prettily. Not really. 3 weeks after that perfect sunset, with ice cream and everything, my phone rang at 6 in the morning. It was my mom, crying. It's Brad. They let him out early. For good behavior. I sat up so fast in bed I almost felt my neck snap. What? He was supposed to be locked up at least 4 years. Seems the prison was full. They released several who weren't considered dangerous. They let him out yesterday. Not dangerous. As if threatening, extorting, and destroying lives didn't count as something serious. As if sending Rocco to our house to make our life impossible wasn't violence. Mark was already awake, watching me while I tried to digest the news. Brad is out. I told him. He didn't answer, just got up and stood watching the light coming through the window, as if looking for answers in nothingness. What do we do? I asked him. Nothing. His voice was cold. He already served. Legally he is free. But nothing. He turned toward me. We spent 2 years of our life suffering because of him. The trial, the testimonies, the drama with the family. It's over. It's no longer our business. And if he returns, we'll see what to do if that happens. But we're not going to live in fear every day. Exactly that is what he would want. I wish I could have the calm Mark feigned. I know him too well. I noticed the tension in his shoulders and the anger kept in his gaze. Deep down, he was just as worried as me, only he didn't show it. The first weeks, after Brad got out, were quiet. Too quiet. I kept expecting something. A call, a knock on the door, a threat in the mailbox. But as much as days passed, nothing happened. Rachel Vasquez, the reporter who broke the story from the beginning, contacted us to let us know she was tracking him. Brad went to live with his mom, who seems to have forgiven him while he was in prison. He couldn't approach any of his victims. That was one of the conditions for his freedom. But Rachel wanted us to be on the lookout. If he tries to communicate, write everything down and call his parole officer immediately, she told us. With that, they sent him back to jail. We took precautions. We changed the locks again. We put up security cameras and alerted the neighbors to be alert to anything weird. But life went on. I went back to the office. Mark too. We kept having dinner with my mom on Sundays and had therapy with Dr. Stevens on Wednesdays. Normal life, or at least as normal as could be. 6 weeks after Brad got out, I got home, and there was a car parked in front. A silver sedan. Nothing weird at first glance. But there was someone inside and they didn't get out. I stayed sitting in my car, watching. The guy in the sedan didn't move either. He wasn't looking at his phone or reading or anything people normally do when waiting. He just stayed there looking toward the house. I called Mark. There's someone outside spying on the house. What do you mean there's someone? There's a car in front and someone has been sitting there at least 15 minutes. Can you see who it is? I squinted. The sedan's windows were half-tinted. But I managed to distinguish a silhouette. I think it's a man, big, but I can't see well. Should I call the police? He's not doing anything illegal. He's just there in his car, Mark answered, annoyed. Take a picture of the plates and go inside. Don't confront him. I listened. I took the photo and went in fast, locking the door. The car left about an hour later and I never managed to see the driver. The next day was the same. Returned. Same routine, simply watching. On the third day I got tired. I crossed the street and knocked on the window. They rolled down the glass and it was Rocco, face to face. He looked very different from the last time. Thinner, older. That intimidating presence from 2 years ago that filled my whole kitchen now seemed extinguished. Mrs. Brennan, he told me with that soft voice of always. I imagined someday I would approach you. What are you doing here? Watching. I want to make sure you guys are okay. As he says, Rocco looked around, like making sure there were no witnesses. Can I explain? Please. I won't take much of your time. All my instincts screamed at me to run, to call the police, Mark, whoever, but there was something in his voice, something tired, sad, that made me hesitate. You have 5 minutes, I told him. And I'm going to record this. I took out my phone and opened the recorder. Rocco didn't protest. Since the trial ended, it started. Since Brad went to jail, I lost everything. I lost the job, of course, because I worked for him. Also my apartment, because I couldn't afford rent anymore. And the little reputation I had, because everyone knew I was his trusted thug. He let out a bitter laugh. Not that I had a good reputation, honestly. Why are you telling me this? Because I owe you one, you and your husband. He looked me straight in the eyes. Your statement sent Brad to jail. And those who testified made clear everything he did. And since he fell, I could finally break free. Break free? From his control? Do you know what he did to my mom? I nodded, because Rachel had already told me that story. Brad had me threatened for 8 years. Do what I say or I finish ruining your life, he told me. But when they put him in prison, and he lost all his influence, his threats stopped weighing. So, now you are free. It seems so. Then, why do you prowl my house? Because Brad is out too. And the first thing he's going to want is to recover what he lost. That means looking for those who took it from him. I felt a cold hole in my stomach. Has he contacted you? Has he threatened you? Not directly. He's not dumb. He knows his officer follows him closely. But I still have acquaintances from the old times. There are people who owe me favors and they tell me Brad is planning something. I don't know what it is, but I know it involves you guys. Why should I believe you? Rocco shrugged. You wouldn't have to? I was his thug for 8 years. I helped hurt people. I don't expect you to forgive me or trust me. I'm just trying, he stayed thinking of the word. I suppose repair a little, at least warn you. It seemed like a good start. I stayed on the sidewalk with the phone in my hand, trying to assimilate everything. 2 years ago, Rocco had terrified me. He was like having a human weapon ready to shoot wherever Brad pointed. Now he just looked exhausted, defeated, human. And what do you plan to do exactly? I asked. Are you going to stand outside my house all day? If necessary. I don't intend to let him do harm again. especially to those who sent him to jail. This is crazy. Surely, he almost let a smile escape. Sanity has never been my strong suit, truthfully. I went back to Mark and told him everything. At first he didn't believe me. Rocco, of all people, is going to help us. But when I showed him the recording and he heard the tiredness and regret in his voice, he started to doubt. We have to tell Rachel, he said. If Brad is plotting something, she needs to find out. Rachel was interested in the Rocco topic. They never managed to prove anything on him. Brad was always very careful. He never put anything in his name. But he knows everything, let's say. If he is willing to cooperate, maybe we can build another case. Another case? But Brad already served his sentence. For the previous stuff, yes. But if he is planning something new, maybe we can stop him before he does more damage. Rachel agreed to see Rocco at her office. Mark and I preferred not to go for safety, and because it was going to be too personal. Later she called us to update us. She told me Rocco gave several names, ex-partners, possible victims, even cops Brad paid off. If even half of what Rocco said is true, Brad seeks to restart everything. What do? Document everything. Wait for him to make his move, and then catch him. She paused a moment. But there is something else. Something Rocco didn't want to tell me until we were alone. What thing? That Brad is talking about your mom. I felt my heart in my throat. My mom. Why? He blames her for everything that happened. That if she hadn't needed money, Mark wouldn't have approached him. That if Mark didn't look for him, you wouldn't have gotten involved. And so on until he ended up in prison. Rachel lowered her tone. Rocco says Brad has that idea stuck, looking how to harm her without violating his parole. I could only think of my mom in her small apartment, recovering from the heart attack, trying to rebuild her life every day. The mere idea that Brad could use her to get to me made my blood boil. We have to tell her, I blurted. Let her know she could be in danger. I agree, but carefully. We don't want to provoke another crisis. That same day I went to her. As soon as I entered, she knew something wasn't right. Now what happened? Is it Mark? Is it the kids? No one is hurt, but I need to talk to you. I told her everything about Brad's release, Rocco's warning, Rachel's investigation. The color left her face, but she listened without interrupting. When I finished, she stayed quiet for a while. Then she went for a glass of water. I should have supposed this wasn't going to end just like that, she sighed. Consequences don't vanish just because one wants. It's not your fault, Mom. Sure? She looked at me fixedly. I looked for Mark instead of you. I pressured him to ask for that loan. I put everyone in this because I was ashamed to ask my daughter for help. You were sick, I told her. Gambling addiction is a disease. Don't look for justifications for me. She got serious. I've been working in therapy for 2 years to accept my mistakes. I don't plan to play the victim just because now it feels uncomfortable. I stayed quiet because I knew partly she was right. But she was my mom and living carrying so much guilt hurt me a lot. And now what follows? She asked, keeping you safe. Rachel and Rocco are building the case against Brad. Meanwhile, take care. Don't open the door to strangers. Don't go out alone at night. Notify us if you see anything weird. I'm 64 years old, Sarah. I don't plan to live terrified. Just until this passes. Please, I sighed. Okay. But I'm going to buy one of those doorbell cameras. If someone comes to threaten me, I at least want to see their face. That night I helped her order the camera, and the next day we installed it. It seemed like a small thing given the danger Brad represented, but it was better than nothing. A small control amidst the chaos. 2 weeks later was the first scare. My mom called me at work. Nervous. Someone left something at the door. What thing? A box. With nothing. No return address or labels. I haven't opened it. Don't open it or touch it. I'm on my way. I got to her apartment in 20 minutes. The box was on the welcome mat. A common cardboard one. Shoebox size. No marks or tape. As if someone just left it and left. I called Rachel. She instructed me to take photos and open it with gloves. Inside, there was only a photograph. My mom's old house. The same one she almost lost due to debts. The one Brad used to trap her. On the back, with black marker, someone had written, "Remember what you cost me." We notified the police. We filed the report and handed over the photo along with the box to check for prints. The cops listened to us and were honest. If we can't prove who left this, there's not much to do, explained the detective. It's not properly a threat, just a phrase, and nothing illegal is seen in the photo. I told them he was violating his parole. That he couldn't have contact with his victims. That has to be reviewed by his parole officer. Talk to her. We did that. Brad's parole officer was a tired lady named Linda. You could tell she had already dealt with too many similar cases. She cited Brad to appear. He denied everything. He said he hadn't even been near my mom's building and didn't know what we were talking about. He's lying, I told Linda. Probably. But I have no way to prove it. There are no prints on the box or witnesses, or cameras showing anything. Truthfully, this makes me angry. These people already know how to play the system. You deny everything until you get caught in the act. And meanwhile, my mom has to live with fear. I truly am sorry, but I can't do anything else. That night we returned home feeling totally powerless. Brad was playing with us and there was no way to avoid it. But Rocco didn't plan to give up. 3 days later he arrived at the house with a folder full of papers. I know how he's doing it, he blurted out. Brad is using a friend of his, one he met in jail, Richie Tarrant. He has no relation to you or your family, so no one suspects if he's around here. And what good does that do us? I know Richie, and he owes me a favor. Rocco's eyes looked determined. If I get him to testify and tell that Brad paid him to leave the box, we could already report him for breaking parole. And do you think Richie is going to dare to flip? He's afraid of Brad. He knows he just uses him and sooner or later is going to leave him stranded. He just needs to know there is another option. Mark and I exchanged glances. What do you need from us? Asked Mark. Nothing, just let me handle it. I'll let you know anything. Rocco put away his papers. I'll let you know, and he left. Mark and I stayed there in the kitchen, where Brad had blackmailed us 2 years before. trying to digest what was happening. Do you trust Rocco? I asked. Him? No. But I'm clear he hates Brad more than us. Mark rubbed his face. This is absurd. We are leaving our safety in the hands of an ex-thug to free ourselves from a criminal. Do we have another alternative? He didn't answer me. We both knew the answer. Rocco delivered. In less than a week he already had recordings of Richie Tarrant, confessing Brad gave him $500 to take the box to my mom's house. He also had statements from a secret account of Brad's, where he withdrew money to keep bothering us. Rachel took those proofs to the prosecutor's office, and they turned them straight to the parole board. 3 days later they arrested Brad for breaking his restrictions. Now yes, no early releases, no sentence reduction for good behavior. This time the system did get serious. They sent him back to serve what he lacked of his sentence, plus 18 extra months for the violation. 4.5 more years of jail. When he got out, Mark and I were going to be well into adulthood. If someday we had kids, they would already be even in elementary school. And my mom, maybe, wouldn't even be around. But they were 4.5 years of peace, of being able to sleep soundly, of breathing again. The day after they took Brad, Rocco came to look for us one last time. It's done, it's over, he told us. Brad isn't going to bother you again. And what are you going to do now? I asked him. I'm not sure. I suppose start from scratch. Look for a decent job. Maybe leave the city. He paused. There is a program for ex-convicts who want to turn the page. They help you get employment, where to live, start over. I'm thinking of enrolling. You should do it, Mark told him. And it was the first time I heard him say something like that. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For everything I did to you. For having been involved in all this. Rocco looked us straight in the eyes. I know apologies fix nothing. But I wanted you to know. And he left. We never saw him again. Sometimes I think about Rocco. I wonder if he did make it. If he found that job, that apartment, that different life. If he ever managed to leave behind the person he was, hopefully, yes. Not because I think he earned forgiveness. Truthfully, I don't even know if it can be earned, but it would be proof that people can change. That it is possible to look at everything ugly you did, and decide to build something good. That is what Mark and I try to do. That is what we keep trying. The lottery dough is already running out. The little that remained after Brad. After my mom's recovery. After starting over. We invested it. It's not much, but it's growing. Slow, but sure. We have a financial advisor named Harold. And he is as boring as his name. Every month we have meetings to see the budget. Sometimes they get tense. Sometimes we even argue. But we always manage to agree. Our marriage is stronger than ever. Now we really have built it without secrets, only with honesty.